Nice to see all of you here today on this wondrous and salubrious occasion. Let me first thank the students and the faculty for that spectacular production of the last 3 days at SCI-Arc. You may wonder, you may not wonder, why it is that at the beginning of September, SCI-Arc holds a graduation, whereas the conventional graduations are held in June. And let me just give you a brief explanation for why we do what we do, because I think it says a little bit about how SCI-Arc operates, how it makes its decisions, how it selects its priorities. September is the opening of the school year. We open the school year. And all of the students who are new to SCI-Arc on the 3.5-year program, the 2.5-year program, and the 5-year program arrive at the school, and essentially they arrive in the midst of this rigorous, vigorous interrogation of the discipline of architecture, so that they understand, they see, they hear, they understand what will be expected of them 3 years, 2.5 years, 5 years from now. So it's inculcated the aspiration, the content, the energy, the striving to move the discussion of architecture, and they land right in the middle of that. So we thought, why not open the school with that discussion? And as a new group moves in and hears it and participates in that, at least vicariously, the old group says goodbye and the new group comes in. So simply put, that's why the graduation is where it is or when it is. Now, where it is also says something about what we value here, what we aspire to here. I think graduations in a traditional sense are probably sober, serious, wistful, nostalgic, even tear-laden a bit, reminiscing. I think SCI-Arc is, every bit as serious, but not so much nostalgic, not so much tear-laden, and really looking to see what comes next, what we can learn from graduation and how the school moves forward. So it's less a retrospective, wasn't it wonderful, and more a looking forward, it will be more wonderful. In that context, I should thank Marcelo and Georgina of Patterns, the firm Patterns, young architectural firm in LA and other places, who designed this piece that you see here. And the tradition, I don't know whether to say tradition of SCI-Arc, but the tradition of non-tradition at SCI-Arc is that each year a faculty member and a team of students builds the event venue in which we celebrate graduation. So there have been a number, Alexis Rochas, Dwayne and Jenny, and now the most recent one by the firm Patterns. And the building was a result of a competition and a grant for about $250,000, which was given to us to provide the venue and also to make it available to the neighborhood, which is at least euphemistically referred to as the Arts District. So as we look at graduation as a way, as an initiative to speculate on where we're going, in a literal physiological way, here it is. Whether you want to go there, we can discuss, but this is a prospect, this is a possibility. So we build, as I said, the venue each year. We have two speakers today. I think the tradition of most graduations is to have one who stands up and tells you how your credentials could dovetail or could fit into the world of work and employment and so on, and so on. In the first place, we don't have one, we have two. And in the second place, I think both of the speakers that we have today are less interested in how what we've done dovetails with what they do outside, and more how what we've done will reformulate what the world does outside. So in a certain sense, the world might be other than it is, and students coming from SCI-Arc can take it in that direction. So I think the two speakers, in different ways, will pursue that discussion. It's interesting, titles and offices and positions of those who come to speak to you at graduation, you know, the Secretary of State and the President of Bolivia and so on and so on and so on. And the titular credentials of the two speakers seem to be modest. One directs a gallery in Manhattan, and the other could be called a historian of sorts. So in a titular sense, they don't seem to be particularly ostentatious or provocative, but the titles have very little to do with the credentials of the speakers. Jean-Louis Cohen is the first speaker, and I guess one could describe him as not only a teacher or a curator, but a historian not as someone who regurgitates a series of facts that we all learn or come to learn and memorize, but dealing with the idea, and I think this is fair to say, that there is no history in a way. There's no history in the abstract, but history is continually rewritten, so that one could say it's as much an invention. So he'll tell you not so much what it was, but his point of view is an imposition on history, on a collection of ideas. And he constructs a conception of the past, brings it into the present, and I think makes it available to the future. So that as he rewrites and as he reimagines, he does very much what we do as architects, to look again and to reimagine. The second speaker, Eva Franch, comes from the same tradition, although a different piece of the picture. She runs the storefront for art and architecture in New York. And those of you who heard her speak in the last several days encountered a young woman with energy, with focus, with imagination, with discipline, and probably more than anything else, an enormous flow of energy and commitment. I think the energy accompanies the work, and I think the energy is contagious. So she'll be the second speaker. So first, let me introduce to you Jean-Louis Cohen from Paris and New York City, and he will be followed by Eva Franch. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Eric. Good evening, everybody. And first of all, congratulations to the new graduates and their instructors. Eric's friendly invitation to talk to you on the occasion of his graduation ceremony touches me in many ways. SCI-Arc is unquestionably a remarkable, unique institution whose radiation contaminates the world far beyond Southern California. its destiny has been defined in the past 4 decades since its creation in 1972 by its location at the intersection of 2 phenomena that interested me vividly. I will discuss them briefly as a defrocked architect turned historian, if I try to qualify myself in a few words, an architect building, operating in history. The first phenomenon is the culture of subversion and innovation in modern and contemporary architectural education as it has developed in the past 5 decades. The second deals with the original architectural culture that has developed in Los Angeles, where SCI-Arc has dug its roots. In a certain way, I have discovered both at the same time in the summer of 1981, 32 years ago, as I was for the first time in Los Angeles and the United States since, as a conspicuous engaged leftist, I had been denied American visas until then. Among the encounters I vividly remember, besides encountering Frank Gehry and barbecuing for 1 month in his backyard, was a meeting I had one morning with Michael Rotondi, then the director of SCI-Arc, and a brief visit to the school. After having been actively engaged in the demolition of one of the most formidable of the schools, the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, I was finding at SCI-Arc an echo of what had been happening since '68 with the new schools in France and part of Europe, where new didactic protocols were implemented by young architects hostile to the suffocating professional establishment. The existence of the school as an autonomous place away from the large university campuses here was, however, not a comparable condition, as the French schools, for instance, which had escaped from the realm of fine arts, were precisely aspiring at joining research universities. They have not yet succeeded today, by the way. But the main difference was of a different order. European schools were still diffident in respect to design, which they misunderstood as being unavoidably corrupted by the profession's expectations, and focused instead on social sciences and on scientific pursuits, reducing studio work to timid explorations. In contrast, a new design culture was being shaped at SCI-Arc with an experimental perspective. Experimental it was in its definition of space, in its understanding of construction, and in its exploration of new geometries. This aspect has been remarkably explored this spring in one of the rooms of the exhibition held here on the so-called Confederacy of Heretics. I shall not propose you a chronicle of what has happened in your school since its creation. Accents have been put, as shown today by the thesis, on analogy, on metaphor, on irony, on inventing alternative urbanities. This is what we can meet in the rooms. It is very clear that SCI-Arc had found for itself a unique place in the galaxy of architectural education, as it has morphed away from its initial character of an alternative school, but a regional one, to become a point of intensity in the globalized network of schools. This network is characterized not only by the mobility of faculty and students, but also by the fluid circulation of ideas and forms between the peculiar entities that School of Architecture represent. The first, let me backtrack a little bit, not too much, the first architectural academies had been instituted in order to disseminate the canons of classicism, and the main schools that had emerged in the 19th century were meant to educate the students in a spirit of reproduction and conformity. However, it did not last very long before subversive attempts were made to challenge established theories. In the case of the Paris École, I would mention the revolutionary interpretation Labrouste gave of the Paestum Temple in Italy, which opened the way to a modernization of the discourse, or later the provocative urban projects of Tony Garnier. But the school did not change in substance until '68. The new institutions, instead, that emerged after the First World War had a different perspective. Training architects for modern industry and modern programs at the Bauhaus in Germany, or training architects at the service of the revolution at Moscow's Kutemas. In both cases, the experience of the wood and metal workshops was considered as important as the knowledge of the fundamentals of design. SCI-Arc has indeed inherited features from these schools in order to institutionalize subversion, most notably this insistence on virtuoso craft. It is in fact the privilege of architectural schools to be platform for a critical analysis of existing conditions and for the germination of new ideas about landscapes and cities. As they break with the tyranny of existing discourse, they conquer the realm of imagination. Sure, the distance can seem sometimes extreme between form and structures proposed in student studio work and the so-called real tasks of architecture, and all too often the freedom granted to didactic design has been somewhat cynically considered as a mere compensation for the constraints of professional life. School time was being a period in which reality was suspended. This schizophrenia has been contradicted as society has become more porous to adventurous proposals, and as schools such as SCI-Arc have become incubators for schemes inscribed in practical horizons. In concrete terms, the training of architects cannot be limited, however, to the realm of schools, even the most daring ones. And the culture of young designers is not only shaped by their master's example and the experience of the studios. Three components are in fact intertwined in the making of young professionals. The first one is what I would call the explicit training provided by the school's courses and studios. I don't need to elaborate here on what these self-conscious programs aiming at the transmission of knowledge and the controlled acquisition of design expertise are. In contrast to schools evolving in seclusion and not accepting exterior evaluation of a student's work, this form of endogamy is still widespread. The ones that, like SCI-Arc, that bring outside critics into their studios increase significantly their productivity and help students to measure their accomplishments and adjust their generous intentions to reality. The second component deals with the experience gained by students outside of the schools in the firms where most of them work. Just think of prominent figures such as Frank Lloyd Wright, Mies van der Rohe, or Le Corbusier, who received only, if at all, a brief and shallow academic education and were taught by their bosses, respectively Louis Sullivan, Bruno Paul, and Peter Behrens, and Auguste Perret. This is what led Le Corbusier, for instance, to consider much later in his life that he did not need to take a teaching position at the Beaux-Arts since his office was per se what he called the workshop of patient search. The third component is more elusive, and I could call it latent in contrast to the manifest academic training, using freely a contrasting terms proposed by Sigmund Freud in the context of the analysis of dreams. This component is relative to what I would call the cultural bath in which students are floating. That is the urban context in which their life unfolds and in which their understanding of architecture and of society at large is shaped. To stick with Wright, Mies, and Le Corbusier, what they read, but also the landscape, the buildings they saw in Chicago, Berlin, or Paris, has been as determining as what they have grasped from practice during their working hours. Today, students are mobile, within the limits of their financial resources, of course. What the Erasmus program, for instance, has achieved in the past 20 years for European students has been extraordinary in shaping a new culture that transcends the borders, inscribed in a much larger bath. SCI-Arc had been active in this respect from the beginning, opening a program in Ticino during the high period of Mario Bottas and Luigi Snozzi's production. But now living in contemporary Los Angeles has become more stimulating and sometimes more exotic than spending time in Ticino. And this is where I want to conclude. It is precisely there that we encounter the second phenomenon I've mentioned in beginning, this too long talk, the significance of Los Angeles architectural culture today. Since the beginning of the 20th century, LA has been a laboratory for architectural invention, thanks to the combined ambitions of adventurous patrons and radical architects. The labors of several generations of designers have created a multi-layered network of imaginative building types and of remarkable houses, even if the overall landscape of the metropolis cannot be considered a harmonious one. Since Rainer Banham published his pioneer book in 1971, the book that brought me and many Europeans to Los Angeles, due tribute has been paid to the early modernists and to post-war designers. Now the heretic forces that have shaped the current scene since the 20s are acknowledged as having created a strong and what I would call a non-standard architecture. Many historians have tried to subvert the accepted representations. This is what very gently Eric mentioned, and I've suggested, in my case, and I've suggested in order to revise the master narrative that places and themes that used to be viewed as marginal should be perceived now as central. This view is valid for Los Angeles, and Frank Lloyd Wright's all too famous statement, quote, "Tip the world over on its side and everything loose will land in Los Angeles," end quote, recently used again by Sylvia Levin in her remarkable show at the Mack Centers. This statement could itself be tipped over and parodied. Significant ideas and forms originating in Los Angeles now reach the world from Europe to Asia and Latin America. A similar centrifugal pattern can be observed in architectural education. As the students' work discussed today confirms it, SCI-Arc carries values of imagination and experimentation capable of reconfiguring thought and practice well beyond the 10, 101, and even the 110 freeways. Many thanks for your patient attention.
Thanks very much, Jean. It's funny, John and I walked into a Starbucks, true story, walked into a Starbucks a couple of days ago, and you know where you make your order and then you give your name to the lady who fulfills it, and he very carefully insisted that his name was John as opposed to Jean or Jean, assuming that the American intellectual capacity to digest and regurgitate any nomenclature outside of the boundaries of the United States was impossible. Whether he's right or not, you have to decide. One interesting point many interesting points, but one point that I want to make reference to that was essential to Jean's talk has to do with SCI-Arc now as a central topic as opposed to a marginal topic, or as a durable institution as opposed to a precarious institution. And this would be an admonition to the future at SCI-Arc. You have to be careful when everybody starts to love you. On that note, I've said a few times that I think architecture works, at least in part, but not in whole, when architecture has an adversary or an enemy, notwithstanding how many allegedly love you. So Eva Franch, I think, in her role or her multiple roles, is the quintessential progenitor of adversarial discourse. And if she keeps at it, we can be assured that architecture, in the most positive and constructive way, will continue to be adversarial and therefore to have enemies. So please welcome the progenitor of enemies. Eva Franch.
That's amazing. Thank you. I will take that as probably the best introduction that one could make. Let's see. There we go. Dear faculty, dear director, parents, thank you for allowing me to be part of your celebrations today. Class of 2013, congratulations. The fact that today I'm speaking to you should tell you more about this school than I could ever explain you. The school where you have spent the last years of your life has trusted, almost blindly, on myself to deliver you a message that you already know. The world is yours to make. If we look the world we have outside of this fence, we might find ourselves in a society immersed in a consumer culture where desires and citizens, perhaps called users, are being constructed through marketing and fashion models, where play does not equal anymore freedom, but numbness perhaps, and where politics and wars do not construct democracies, if ever did. An economy is a global ever-present game, unable to be played by the 99% of the world. We are constantly exposed to a culture to consume, to a political system we hardly believe, and to an economy we cannot even understand and even less control. And the question is, where is architecture within this all? Before you entered this school, you all had an idea about what architecture was. And now, after all these readings, all these drawings, all these words, all these sleepless, passionate nights with coffees, endless amounts of coffee, you all have another idea of what architecture is. And I want you to hold into it. I want you to grab it. I want you to write it down in your head right now. I want to start my speech actually with a silence to be filled in your heads by your own definition today, the day that you are graduating, of what architecture is. But everyone knows I'm terrible with silences, so I'm going to give you that break afterwards. So, what is architecture? Architecture is dealing with it all. Architecture is the discipline that has the duty, but also the privilege to articulate the different desires and the different realities of society in a particular moment in time. Architecture has the ability to bring together the social, the political, the economical, all in the orchestration of a collective aspiration, trying to understand who we are as citizens of a world that we constantly keep on constructing. But more importantly, architecture is the discipline that understands society as a whole, being able to be an advocate for those ones who are not able to sit down in the decision-making table. Architecture sits there for us all. It is the duty of the architect to be the spokesperson for those ones who do not have the power to decide the cities, the architectures, the territories we actually live in. That's what I think when I think what is architecture and what does architecture have to do with it all. You came to SCI-Arc to learn what architecture was. Yet you have received the best education possible. That is an invitation to figure out what architecture could be and should be. And tomorrow, when you all face your loans, your new moves, your licensing desires, your desires for other skills, do not forget what you have learned in here. The school has given you the time to construct who you are. And even if that picture is still a bit blurry, it will sharpen really fast. Having studied in Europe, I did not have the luxury and the privilege that you had to receive the same invitation to rethink what architecture could be. I received education of what architecture was. Only when I moved to the States, the professors I encountered showed me the trust that each one of us had the ability and the possibility to reimagine the world as we wanted. They trusted that each one of us here today has something to contribute in the collective project of living the world that we inhabit. So how we, all the ones who are here, like it or not, we need to figure out how to live together and make of our encounters, even if it is in a place like this, the most significant act of exchange, but also of creation. In this path of discovery of what architecture has been to what it could be, only your own madness, and we have been talking about that these last 3 days, has and will drive you. To my students, I always say, I cannot teach you madness. I can only teach you rigor. Yet, honestly, the only thing that interests me is the madness that each one of you carries inside. So, in my job these days as the director of a storefront for art and architecture in New York, my job is actually to help everyone to bring our collective madness inside out, to bring the spirit of our time to the front of society. At the schools, it is always within thesis that one finds the highest examples, the best evidences that demonstrate a school's ability to bring the madness of its student body inside out. These last 2 days have been a spectacle of madness. It have been beautiful, sublime madnesses, one after the other. And you need to keep on pursuing them, on unveiling them, on bringing yourself inside out. You've heard many times, though, follow your dreams, follow your passions. But you know what? Dreams are super hard to remember. And passions, one cannot even follow them. They go faster than one. One is always somehow behind them. But architecture, once you actually almost master it, is able to build dreams that everyone can remember. And different than passions, architecture does not only move mountains, it makes mountains. So forget the dreams and forget the passions, just focus in architecture. So my advice is to let your madness act and do that what you cannot avoid doing. But let me give you a piece of warning, and it is true that I do like to antagonize. As someone who is just 1 block away from where you are today, I didn't graduate that long ago, I can tell you to be careful. Tomorrow can be a hard day. What architect do you choose to be is in your hands to decide. I do believe that actually there are 3 growing models of architects, and very dangerously growing so. These 3 types are what I call, and the ones that have heard me talk sometimes, I have mentioned them already. They are 3. They are the enabler, they are the iconographer, and they are the agitator. And who are these 3 guys? Well, the enabler is the architect that more or less, with cynic or cool arguments, limits his or her duty or creative task to accommodate the multiplicities of projected desires by society with no further questioning on the origin or nature of the problem posed. With this position, the enabler is extremely similar to the dictator. It doesn't question anything. It simply has as clients ideological constructs. And their intellectual game becomes simply a meta-discourse, an insider's game, either technical, functional, geometrical, cultural, environmental, social, political, moral, or in more even general terms, and I don't like to use that word, I would say disciplinary. On the other hand, we have the second type of the architect. We have the iconographer. The iconographer is immersed in a drama of signification and communication. He plays the frustrating game of difference and sameness. It is the guy who wants to do symbols and icons and easy metaphors for everyone to consume and to eat. And in this place, in this game of this frustrating game of difference and sameness, in the search of a frozen firework, that while desiring to be in the realm of the sublime, most of the times just simply stays in the fringe of the banal without ever reaching even the realm of the revolutionary, I have to say I'm not interested in that guy either. And then we have the third type, that is the agitator. And who is the agitator? Well, he's the avant-garde architect, the one who is disturbed, molested against everything and all, right? He's just simply playing the game of resistance. He wants to be the infant terrible, whose parents, almost most of the times in a complicated relationship, the enabler and the iconographer, need to be killed in an act of terrorism, of war. So with these three categories, users can fulfill their expectations of service and the spectacle, and architects can find their jobs. Oh yeah, you will find your jobs being an enabler or an iconographer or an agitator. The enabler constructs spaces of habitation or discourse, the iconographer constructs images, and the agitator constructs events that are actually even memorable sometimes. And with these three types, we end up with a service industry, and instead of an architecture culture, we become architecture servants. So I'm not interested in professionalized attitudes only, or in catalog expectations, or in touristic and voyeuristic intellectual and pragmatic approaches. So, of course, I'm not just simply crying here. There is a fourth type. And for the sake of today, I would say that this type, that is the savor of this situation, I will call it for today's ceremony, the SCI-Arc type. So, the SCI-Arc type is the architect that is able to be an agitator, an enabler, and an iconographer, yet all of them at the same time. And this SCI-Arc architect is able to question the wrongs of society, is able to facilitate not only what society wants, but that what society didn't know it wanted. It is able to produce a new aesthetic that is able to engulf us with beauty, with agency and thought. So during these last almost 3 days, I didn't see all of you guys, but I saw some of you. And you showed me who you are. And I'm just going to remind you of who you are, of what you do, of what this fourth type of architect does, of this SCI-Arc architect. 1, you unveil power structures. You stand up for that, what you believe. Tyler, you did it. You, second, you free speech. You go towards expression. You break the icon and the easy metaphor. You find new forms, new aesthetics. You go towards onomatopoeic thought. You produce the uncanny, the familiarized. Laura Kwak, Project, Coho, you also did it. 3, you are walled citizens, and you know how to disagree. Yes, you do. You will go beyond linguistic, politic, and social boundaries. You think big and small, and you construct relations. Thank Jinming, you did it. Even if I didn't saw your project, I saw you. Jack Barton, you know you, baby. It's not the algorithm, it's you. So, 4, you make maps. You find your own routes. You do not believe in career advancement solely. You create your own horizon of expectations. Ryan, that was the thing, right? 5, you democratize action. If the social contract ever fantasized about the potentiality of every human subject being devoid of pre-existing privileges or acquired social status, performing an equally valuable role within a given society, you guys also did it. Mackenzie, Sonali, I think you almost found it. You invent programs. You invent new subjects. And I'm saying that seriously. And if you haven't erased those cat blocks from your computers, I mean, please do. You need to redraw them again. Or find the new skellies. Or if not, you can always put them in a bathtub, right? Tallinn did it, right? And 7, ultimately, you laugh. And you need to laugh because laughter is extremely important and produce goosebumps, write stories, jokes, but ultimately write manifestos. I like when you actually have shown me how to go from obsessions to positions. As Tristan Zara said, to launch a manifesto, you have to want A, B, and C. But you also need to fulminate to find your enemies against 1, 2, and 3. Sarah also noted that to write a manifesto, you need to work yourself up and sharpen your wings. And you gave me some knives to sharpen my wings, indeed, these last days. To end, I want to talk about history and the making of history. And I'm not a historian, but I like to think that there are 3 ages in history. And it is important for you to know about that because we are very much part of it. The first one is the history of the immediate now. It goes with the hundreds of thousands. It goes with the likes. It goes with the social media that actually puts us the adrenaline high in the sky, and it's substituted by another one with 200,000 likes and something else. It just drives out of very strange dynamics that do not necessarily build on any value that actually transcends the now. I'm not really interested in that history. There is a second history. That one goes more into the thousands. And it perhaps goes not into the now, but into the decades. And it has to do with alliances and power and friends. And it has to do sometimes with money. And it has to do with being maybe next to the coffee machine long enough for the right time. And eventually, perhaps, who knows, maybe you will appear in that book that someone, that's also not the history that one should be interested on. It's too much of a recent one. There is a third history. That is the history that probably no one ever writes. It's the history of ideas. That only intrepid historians are the ones who are in charge of building, of constructing, of unveiling, of giving back. And it is the history that you should all care for. And it is a history that doesn't give rewards. It is a history that goes beyond the times that we will ever be able to measure. So looking into history, I looked back yesterday night when I was trying to write this speech into my email back to March 7th of 2005. That day I received an email from Jeffrey Inaba, director of SCI-Arc Graduate Admissions, saying the following. Dear Eva Franch, Gilabert, greetings. We are pleased to offer you admission into SCI-Arc's Sci-Fi program. We were very impressed by your described interest and background and believe you would be an ideal candidate for the program. It would be our pleasure to discuss with you the program in more detail. Would it be possible to contact you by phone to tell you more about Sci-Fi studio themes, visiting seminar teachers, curricular structure, etc.? What is the best number to call? Best regards, Jeffrey. I sent him my phone. We talked several times. On April 6, 2005, I sent an email. It said, Dear Jeffrey Inaba, I'm writing to you to communicate that I decline SCI-Arc's offer of admission because I plan to attend the post-professional master's degree at Princeton University School of Architecture. Although my decision is final, I want to express my intentions for a future encounter with SCI-Arc. In my opinion, your school is one of the places that an architect, as a thinker, has to know, live, and transform. I already wanted to change you. In order to achieve a full knowledge of the complexity of architecture in our times. Looking forward to meet you in a shorter or longer term. Sincerely, Eva Franch, Gilabert. Looking forward to meet you in a shorter or longer term. I knew at that time, actually, that SCI-Arc was too close to who I was. This was the place that was closer to who I am as a person, as a spirit, as an architect, as a citizen of the world. And I was afraid that actually I would stay here forever. And I actually had to meet other ghosts, and that's probably why I went to Princeton. So the spirit of this place should remind you and reminds me of what architecture is and could be. And the architect that you, I, and us, as a collective, want to be. As I said at the beginning, the world is yours, ours to make. These last 2 days, 3 days, have been worth an 8-year wait. This has been my first time at SCI-Arc, and I'm not sure I will be able to leave already. So, to end, I will give you, and I always say, it's not that I don't give advice, I constantly give advice, as you can say, and I'm really not humble in that side. So, the best piece of advice that I can give you is one that it took me a long time to realize. And this is usually what happens with the best things in life, that it just takes a while. And it will take you a while to realize what you really learn in here. When I was 14, I was in the chemistry class. And when the professor was going through all the different elements, and I was a kind of like terrible student, to be honest, we arrived to potassium, and suddenly she said, oh, you know, potassium with water is extremely explosive. And I was a terrible student, but really well behaved. But that moment, I always liked long nails. I took with my nails a bit of that potassium, and I kept it. I took my boyfriend, and I always say that love is the best inspirational device that you can all find, FYI. We went into the bathroom when the class finished. We put the potassium on the floor, and we just dropped a bit of water. Man, the potassium was very little. The water was just a drop. But the explosion, it was amazing, yeah? So this brings me to my last piece. That is, the glass is not half full or half empty. There is just simply water to play with. And the only thing that you need to make sure is that you have the right ingredient in your hands. Call it potassium, call it architecture. So I do know that all of you, SCI-Arc students, do have that potassium and do have that thing in your hands. Class of 2013, congratulations.
Should we stop now? You know, it's interesting. I always had a feeling if you walk into, I don't know, say the Prado, and you go and see Guernica, and it's surrounded by so many pieces that to some extent mitigate the painting itself. And you'd like to clear the room and say one painting at a time. And probably if we did this in the right way, we'd say Jean-Louis and Eva and hasta la vista. Because they said enough, they shared enough, that we could probably discourse on that for a while. Agitator, iconographer, enabler. We write history, and history becomes the history we write, I think is the SCI-Arc perspective. And we do appreciate a student of Princeton who clearly has a hell of a lot to overcome, arriving at SCI-Arc to share that act of contrition with a graduating class. Thank you so much, my dear friend. Next one, continuing in the tradition of non-tradition, we have two more speakers. Typically, we have a speaker who 15 to 20 years out was an inhabitant, a student of these hallowed walls, and can tell us, both from the perspective of his or her student life and a contemporary perspective as a professional, what's happened, what's transpired, what's been learned, what was plausible here and implausible there, and so on and so on. I'd like to introduce to you Stuart Magruder, who comes to you from a SCI-Arc class of 1997.
Thank you, Eric. SCI-Arc is a unique place. SCI-Arc is an exception. SCI-Arc is an island, an ivory tower. It may be in the middle of downtown LA, but it is off in its own world in so many important ways. SCI-Arc sets up its own rules to play by. It certainly sets up its own hours. SCI-Arc is focused on creating, not consuming. SCI-Arc is a place apart. There is a through-the-looking-glass quality to the institution that is rather unique, disturbing, and inspirational all at the same time. As soon-to-be graduates, you know that SCI-Arc is made up of extremely dedicated and extremely talented designers. The faculty that teach here, the critics that debate here, and the architects that lecture here at SCI-Arc are some of the best around. A roll call of the leaders of this school since its inception in 1972 is impressive. Ray Cappy, Michael Rotundi, Neil Denari, Eric Owen Moss. These are not your average architects, and SCI-Arc is not your average school. I attended the Marina del Rey version of the school, finishing just before the move to this now permanent home for the institution. Up until that point, most of my education had been on the East Coast. SCI-Arc was a major departure in location and attitude. SCI-Arc was then, and remains now, an outlier of sorts in the education of architects. While the school has ascended to the top rung of the various school rating lists, SCI-Arc has remained true to the original spirit enshrined in '72. This is a place that seeks to substantively and deeply challenge the conventions of the day, a place that remains tightly focused on the importance of design in improving the human experience. The SCI-Arc of 2013 is in many ways the same SCI-Arc of 1972. SCI-Arc is at its best when advocating for the value of good design across all segments of our society. Too often, design is seen as accessible only to the well-heeled. Even with the false democratization and excessive consumerism of the mass design movement, as represented by Dwell Magazine, Who's.com et al., real design issues do not figure prominently enough in our nation's conversation around the built environment. The values driving design and construction marketplace today are first cost, utility, and speed. To cite Vitruvius, utilitas and firmitas are mandated, but what happened to the third leg of the Vitruvian stool? What happened to venustas, or delight? Too often, it is not in the conversation. We architects are responsible for all three of those dictates. We are especially responsible for the last one, for delight. Delight, which I am using as a synonym for design, is the one that no one else is trained to create. It is the first thing that gets cut when, as it always does in construction, budgets become insufficient for the client's initial aspiration. I sit on the LA Unified School District Bond Oversight Committee, a body charged with oversight of the nation's largest ever public works program. We are on the tail end of an effort began in 1997 that has become a $30 billion program. As the lone architect on the board, an unbelievable fact in itself, I am constantly running a rearguard action on behalf of delight. While I have not been able to redirect the effort entirely, I have made quality design and the value it brings to educating students an issue that the district must address. There we go. Architectural delight has a direct impact upon student achievement. This is my message to you today. We, the guardians of delight, must talk more. We must speak more. We must talk more to those outside our circle of fellow architects, artists, movie makers, fabricators, and the like. We must speak more to bureaucrats, to politicians, to citizens, to the media. We must say more in public about why good design matters, and we must proclaim what is good design. We must insert the values of design into the public discourse around the built environment. Right now, we are not even in the conversation. Right now, no one takes us architects seriously. Right now, we are too easily dismissed as dilettantes, as playthings of the well-off, as navel-gazers. A couple of examples. Less than 1 in 10 buildings built in this country is designed by an architect. Engineers design and stamp the design documents for every building type. An architect's stamp is almost never required. We as a profession have run from risk and liability, creating the need for construction management, now eating as big a fee, if not bigger, than what the architect commands. Qualifications-based selection is being replaced, even in public work, by price-based selection. As you might guess, the cheapest one wins that competition, and delight falls by the wayside. We are getting our lunch eaten by too many professions. Why has this happened? It has happened because too many great decisions about our built environment have happened without great public debate. We have allowed the debates to stay relatively private in hopes of securing a commission or getting a spot in the queue for the next one. I saw this firsthand as president of the LA chapter of the American Institute of Architects last year. More often than I would have liked, we as an organization remain silent on several of the big issues facing the city of Los Angeles, because speaking in favor of or against an issue might step on a toe or two. Just imagine what the LA Metro would look like if design was as much of an issue as it was when the Washington, D.C. Metro was built. Imagine how more delightful the massive LAUSD school construction effort I mentioned earlier would be if only the best architects were hired, not just the ones willing to deal with the bureaucracy. We need to join the fight. Luckily, to join, all that is required is your voice. Use it and you will make a difference. Apply the knowledge of design you have learned here at SCI-Arc to the public discourse and you will move the discussion forward. Be an architect and be a citizen. Both are required. So what does this mean for SCI-Arc? Unfortunately, it means that SCI-Arc is not real. SCI-Arc is a mirage. As you step back through the looking glass, you will understand that SCI-Arc is a fantastical dreamland of design. This is a place where all that matters is design. Now your task is to bend that skill to what is happening outside of this delightful train depot. Today you receive your degree in design. Tomorrow you begin your degree in getting things built. You studied design, now you need to become an expert in architectural practice. So get involved. Work at being an architect, intern for pay at the best firm you can get yourself into. Get licensed with 8 or 9 separate tests and all of the intern development program requirements. The process is long and not inexpensive, but you need to do it, and you need to start doing it right now. Your value in the marketplace jumps considerably once you have your license. And yes, Frank Gehry is a licensed architect, so don't make any excuses. Having a license will open doors for you. Along with getting involved, you must get vocal. Join the AIA. Everyone will see you as an architect if you have the Associate AIA and once licensed simply AIA after your name. Get on the Planning and Land Use Committee at your local neighborhood council. Join a business group like the Westside Urban Forum, or the Central City Association, or the hugely influential Urban Land Institute. Be an architect who does more than just draw. Be an architect who speaks proudly and openly about the delights of good design. I hope you savor this ceremony. Enjoy this moment and feel proud of all the work and dedication you and your family have shown to get you to this point. Now join me and jump with 2 feet into the messy world outside these confines. Jump into the rules and the regulations and the budgets and the spreadsheets. You have been trained to see how design can make every one of these better. Spread design around and the world will be a better place. See you in the trenches.
That was a surprise. But surprise is no surprise at SCI-Arc. I would say if you look at the drawings Eric Mendelsohn made in the trenches of Verdun, you should be extremely optimistic about the prospects for architecture coming out of the trenches. Don't be nervous. Next, and I think final speaker in this litany is a student speaker, which we introduce on occasion to give you a sense or a perspective. I have to say, the caveat in these discussions was we recognize even at SCI-Arc the First Amendment, meaning we don't review the talks before they're delivered. So we're open to a number of points of view, which doesn't mean we subscribe, just in case there's any question about that. So this is Stefano Passeri. Did I get that right? Sorry. So Stefano is about to give us his rendition of his life at SCI-Arc as he proceeds to graduate and enter the trenches.
They call Los Angeles the city of angels. I didn't find it to be that exactly, but I'll allow, as there are some nice folks there. Of course, I can say I've seen London, and I've never been to France, and I've never seen no queen in Andes, as a fella says. But I'll tell you what, after seeing Los Angeles, and this here story I'm about to unfold, well, I guess I've seen something ever be as stupefying as you'd see in any of those other places, and in English too. So I can die with a smile on my face without feeling like the good Lord jipped me. Ladies and gentlemen, directors, faculty, family, and friends, it's a real honor to be here today to speak on behalf of the SCI-Arc 2013 graduating class. I gave a lot of thought to what to say in this speech lately, and I came up with a very deep and inspiring piece last week after 3 days of no sleep. Unfortunately, as I was close to finishing it, the inspiration was so intense that I eventually fainted on my keyboard and accidentally deleted the whole thing with my forehead. If you look close, you can still see the backspace arrow embossed on my forehead. I was devastated, and it's a really embarrassing admission to make. Well, I'd come up with something else. Luckily, after so much time spent at SCI-Arc and hard-earned insights in secret operations, I have a couple of other stories to share with you today. It all began a long time ago with a thing called IDD. You have a week to model an amazing jellyfish in Maya, the class instructor said. I had no idea what any of that meant, but it sounded very exciting, and somehow I knew I ended up in the right place. When I asked, what about Borromini? He looked at me and said, you're Italian, right? I nodded in silence and got on with my jellyfish. It was for the best. As things progressed at SCI-Arc, training became more and more sophisticated, introducing tasks that would seem impossible to the uninitiated. For example, there was a project in which we had to work with multiple ontologies. What's an ontology? Is it architecture? No straight answer seemed available, but I still had to find the stuff. Also, we don't think I had to find more than one ontology. Clearly a very tough task. But with the right amount of dedication and effort, we were finally able to grab some ontology for our project. I'm still wondering where to find another one so I can have multiple ontologies, but it takes time to find these things. But it is only towards the end of this process of learning that you gain some real knowledge of the highest level into the thinking of the grandmasters of SCI-Arc. Sometimes the discoveries are shocking and force you to radically rethink your worldview. One poignant example was Hernan's recent admission that his favorite movie is not, as most would think, The Fly or any other Cronenberg masterpieces, not even Alien 1, 2, or 3, but actually 4 Weddings and a Funeral. If you haven't heard of it, you should Google it now. It's amazing. He also stated his true passion for chick flicks and that he's ultimately not so much into horror or sci-fi. This revelation was really shocking to me, and it seems important to share with everyone today. It gives an idea of the extent of surprises and unexpected discoveries one makes during the course of the learning at SCI-Arc. Most of your families and friends who haven't been through any of our programs are probably wondering what on earth I'm talking about and who is this bald guy with a funny accent anyway. Joking aside, spending time at SCI-Arc will really change the way you think. No matter who you were, where you came from, you'll be completely different at the end. You will be another person. You will have another character. You will see everything in a completely different light. When you're done with the training, you will not be afraid of anything. You will have the skill to make the impossible possible and the knowledge that the possible is sometimes impossible, but you will be able to use that to your advantage. Don't ask yourself how, you already know it. All of us, graduates and undergraduates, know that during our time here, we learned several things about architecture, but we also learned much more. We learned how to change ourselves. We learned from Eric, Hernan, John, Ming, Elena, and everyone else, but we also, and perhaps especially, learned from each other in an environment where it's impossible not to share. And we fundamentally grow and change through sharing at SCI-Arc. SCI-Arc is not just a school, it's not just an architecture school, and not just even a community. It's a unique lifestyle, and we should be incredibly proud of it. Over the past couple of years, I've got to know so many wonderful and skilled people here and have been constantly humbled and amazed at the level of talent that is concentrated inside this really strange building. Yes, as I was saying, our building. Don't you think what SCI-Arc is and our building are in themselves perfect for what we do? Tucked away in a downtown, not downtown, of a city, known city, a mysterious, intriguing land of superheroes and special effects, palm trees and Skid Row, official capital of the American dream, official capital of plastic and contradictions, Los Angeles is the most productive weird spot for SCI-Arc to thrive. Living in LA in itself will change the way you think. Living in downtown LA will change the way you think. Spending so much time in this building, half train depot, half hipster depot, half horizontal skyscraper, half infinite corridor, will also change the way you think. Everything is shared. It's impossible to hide anywhere. Everything belongs to everyone. That's our style, and we love it, and that's what makes SCI-Arc the best school of architecture in the world. Thank you, everyone.
Well, I have to say that it really has been inspiring to hear all of these speeches, and it's also a little bit embarrassing to hear about yourself, right? But now I'm not going to give any speeches at all because I think this is a time that all of us have been waiting for. It's a time for celebration. It is a time for acknowledgement. So as you look around, you have seen all the creative output and get some ideas of the trajectory of creativity and just plain hard work. that makes SCI-Arc SCI-Arc. And so you would have some idea how difficult it is to identify outstanding students for the awards that celebrate their achievement. One of the real differences that we were searching for are students whose ambition is matched by their character and services to the community. When our student came in last week at the orientation week, was it just last week, wasn't it? One of the things that I've said to the students and to the parents is that SCI-Arc is a small community, but it's a big family. So we all know how easy it is to be overwhelmed by the challenge of producing the best work, the most engaging design, the most innovative idea, and spending more time and more time and more time to work out the last detail. But it is also important to recognize that you are a member of a larger community, both in school and in life. And we want to recognize those students who are living that balance. So the first award is the Service Award for SCI-Arc, and we give this to, and it's really difficult because all of you are so supportive. I mean, even with the little time that you have to give to us, you still manage to give your time and your commitment to help all of us for every other endeavor, whether it is to build the work in the gallery, to build this, help the staff, help us, Hernan, John, Eric, and me. So I like to acknowledge those students who have been so generous with their time. And if you could come up as I call out your name. In the undergraduate program, we want to give out the service award to Matthew Poole. Daniel Chan Lee. And Maria Andreina Citaro. I miss your last name. Your name is so long. So. In the graduate program, we have 3. We wanted to be ecumenical. So David Ryan Eskenazi, Ryan Tyler Martinez, and Marie Sophie Starlinger. Each year, the Alpha Rho Chi Medal was provided to selected School of Architecture throughout the country to be awarded to the graduating senior who has shown an affinity for leadership, which perform willing service and for the school, and who gives great promise for professional merit through his attitude and personality. Our faculty always have a difficult task of selecting only one graduating student to give this award out. So this is an extremely difficult task. So we like to give the Alpha Rho Chi Medal Award to Daniela Arriagada in the M.Arch program. And for Stefano Passeri in the M.Arch 2 program.
Thank you.
There's a reason. You can see that. And finally, I'd like to present the Henry Adams Medal and certificate, which is awarded by the American Institute of Architects. Formally, this is called the School Medal because the program began since 1914. And it was awarded for general excellence in architecture throughout the 4-year course of graduating student of architecture school. The Henry Adams Certificate of Merit is awarded to our second ranking graduating student. In the undergraduate program, the award is for Alea Olfati. And for the Certificate of Merit is also for David Ryan Eskenazi. It's good to be able to come up twice, right?
Thank you very
Congratulations, David. And finally, the Henry Adams Medal is given to our top academic ranking student. Theodore Di Girolamo in the M.Arch program. And once again, to Stefano Passeri. Congratulations. And now to present the diploma and the graduation with distinction awards, I'd like to introduce Hernan Diaz Alonso, the graduate program chair, and undergraduate program chair John N. Wright.
I'm not going to deny or confirm the chick flick thing. let's leave it at that. So the way that we're gonna do this, I'm gonna read the B.Arch student's diploma, and John is gonna give you the diploma. One thing, some of our graduates will graduate with distinction. This award goes to the graduate and undergrad students whose overall academic tenure while at SCI-Arc reflect distinguished qualities or characteristics. So let's get the show on the road. Nick Ajo. Gabriel Alejandro Albi. Simón Álvarez. Paul Andrashak. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Daniela Arriagada. Karim Atui. Francisco Barrón Martínez. Ryan Derek Bautista. Luis Buieri. Okay. Julian Brumit. Emily Rita Barton. Héctor René Campaña Oliveros. I always get the easy job because all the Hispanic names. Leodan Alberto Castillo. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Theodore Di Girolamo. Antonio Carmelo Folio. Fernando Garrido. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Nidal Hamida. Andrew Charles Hammer. Michael Hall. All right. William Hu. David Hui. Okay. Peter Cowd. Oleg Konkinski. Close enough. Kervin Lau Lima. Jagwan Lee. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Daniel Cheng Lee. Yu Pei Lee. Junmo Lee. Jing Liu. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Ji Hang Lo. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Richard Lucero Jr. Sarah Winona Lansky. Jose Cruz Macia II. Zachary James Kerr Mine. Linda Lorena Mejia. Johnson Mock. Stephen Moody. Hugh Namgung. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Haleb Olfati. Kyle Onaga. Jose Palomares Jr. Jasmine Park. Adria Marie Pauli. Okay. Magenta Pingwetai. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Matthew Poole. Carolina Giselo Rocha. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Justin Allen Roth. Laura Jean Jefferis Rojas. María Andreina Setaro Elia. Ping Ping Claude Tan. Yayung Tang. David Tran. Wei Chi Shai. Wan Yung Leroy Tang. Christy Velasco. Shihan Wang. Wang Hu Huaping. Scott Everett Wilburn. SCI-Arc graduation with distinction for Ryan Michael Wynn. Ying Ying. Sarah Soo-young Yo.
Okay, we will be giving out the diplomas for the M.Arch 1 program. Viola Ago. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Elias Arkin. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Nicholas Barger. Joseph Anthony Brown. Christopher L. Karen. Leslie Maureen Castle. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Mary Page Chambers. Emily Chen Choi. Xian Chi. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, H. Ryan Clark. Roger Cortez. Nedi Dimova. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Talin Ebrahimi. Ziba Esmelian. David Yitzhak Feld. Xiang Wei Gao.
Now you can do it. Now you can take a bow.
Jack Barton Galmer. Rania Hotiet. Malek Idris. Nicole Sarah Karp. Andrew Cragness. Laura Kwok. Alexandra Levian. Cheng Lim. Shun Ping Liu. Bahar Aviv Magareftet. Francisco Martinez. Daniel J. Mascara. Lapfat Nagai. Brooke Marie Orson. Francisco Javier Palomares. Sonali Patel. Alex Fye. Hope Margaret Polanyi. Rafael Ruiz. Aaron M. Ryan.
That's right.
Joseph C. Sacamano. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Jonathan H. Schnurr. Naomi J. Scully. Karen Shue. Young Min Son. Paulo Tandock. Nicole Violani. Peter Foster Wade. Graduation with Distinction, Michael Woodruff. Jia Zhu Zhu. The next category will be the M.Arch 2 program. Alberto Atiad. Johannes Beck. Rohit Charadata Basare. Anas Benhachmi. Gaela Hana Bongo Ondimba. Alexander Michael Dam. Ronald Eccles. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, David Ryan Eskenazi. Mr. Benjamin L. Farnsworth. Feng Jinming. Mustafa Ghaffari. Cheng Gong. Yu Hao. Xizhong Hu. Prajakth Vijay Karmakar. Joel William Kerner. Puria Kodayani. Yong Ha Kim. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Sophie Loriot. Swan Lee. Jisun Lee. Wan Lee. Yi Chen Lee. Koho Lin. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Ryan Tyler Martinez. Armin Masahi. Aladdin Khalid Mogin. Mackenzie Elaine Murphy. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Stefano Passeri. Joseph Francis Ramiro. Christian Santini. Priyank Virendra Shah. Ashley Jennifer Shoulder. Marie Sophie Starlinger. Luis Gerardo Tornell Encinas. Faruzan Torosadami. Zunren Shue. Chao Yan. Xiao Zhan. Shitong Chang. Jia Shu. The following graduates are from the ESTM program. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Alberto Alfonso. SCI-Arc Graduation with Distinction, Juan Gabriel Benavides Milan.
Beautifully pronounced.
Thank you. Yu Ying Chen. Alicia Ana Chola. Brian Thomas Harms. Vince Huang. Ehsan Jelva Mogadam. Heijun Zhong. Maria Kuzminskaya. Last but not least, these graduates are from the SCI-Arc Sci-Fi program. Kenichi Kabeya. Sarah Manson. Federico Pisani. Did we leave anybody out?
Hey, nice job with the names, man. I know. No, you handle me next. Yeah, why don't you help me with the name? Okay, so we're gonna do. You can't hear that. Okay. But there's supposed to be the mirror. Oh, here. Stephanie, thank you for the book. It's way too well organized. Did you guys steal the microphone? Oh. This is relatively brief, but I think extremely important for SCI-Arc. These are the awards, the prizes that acknowledge extraordinary work by both undergraduate students and graduate students in the thesis. And what's the thesis? In a sense, the thesis is SCI-Arc coming back to itself. I think what we typically say is to undergraduates, we give you 4.5 years of discourse, of studio, of exhibition, of lecture, of adventure. And then from your point of view, selectively, you pull what you need, you reject what you don't, and you give us back your rendition of the world that you passed through. And this is a gauge both of your capacity, your intellect, your energy, your point of view, and the kind of students that SCI-Arc is producing now. So this is an important indicator of who you are and fundamentally who or what SCI-Arc is. I think ideally speaking, the best projects would include a dialectical aspect, meaning an argument, a theoretical argument, and a lyrical aspect, a poetic argument, one more intellectual, one more emotive. So these awards in one form or another are awards for the capacity to engender a dialectical lyric. So the first group of awards belong to the undergraduate program, aptly, adeptly run by Mr. John Enright. These are merit awards, and they go as follows. Merit Award for undergraduate thesis, Ryan Michael Wynn. All of them? Yeah, okay. SCI-Arc Merit Award. This is a group project, so 3 students. Know who that is? William who? Wait a minute, we didn't call your name. Did anybody say Jasmine Park? Not yet. And
Alea Olfati.
Alea Olfati. Congratulations. Wait a minute. Merit undergraduate thesis to
Laura Jean Jeffries Rosas.
merit undergraduate thesis to Shihan Wing. Take your time.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Merit undergraduate thesis to Ping Chloe Tan. And the last merit undergraduate thesis to Nick Out. Congratulations to all of you. So the next one is accompanied by a little Das Kapital here. Dinero. You get some money. But we need 3 envelopes. Where the hell are they? Oh, okay. Okay. That's right. So this is one award, a team of 2. Best. Wait a minute. Don't be so sure. Best undergraduate thesis, team of Antonio Carmelo Polo. Should we bring up your teammate or no? Simon Alvarez. Hey, wait a minute. Simon Antonio.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Do you want to know how much, Jamie, how much was that? 1,500 each. Okay. Next is the Merit Award for Graduate Thesis. Merit Award for Graduate Thesis. Okay. Elias Arkin. Don't run away. Nice job, man. Emily Chen Choi. Young Ha Kim. Nice job. You want to say a few words? Laura Quack. You never know. Nice job. Yi Chen Lee. Yi Chen Lee. You better hurry up. We're going to change our mind.
Thank you.
Nice job. Mackenzie Elaine Murphy. Don't look at me. Congratulations. Joseph Francis Romero. Jonathan H. Schnur. Nice job. Marie Sophie Starlinger. Thank you. So the final award is the Gehry Prize, the Frank Gehry Prize. Some of you know Frank made an extremely generous contribution to SCI-Arc several years ago, and the prize is named in his honor. But in a sense, the 2 points are non sequiturs. Can you pluralize a Latin non sequitur? No, non sequitur. Because if any of you take a walk tomorrow through Frank's studio and you see the work that he's doing, it's as inventive, as imaginative, as original, I think, as it has ever been. So certainly, whether he had made a contribution or he didn't, and we thank him and Berta, it's actually named for both. The award on its, in terms of the nomenclature, is the perfect name. So the quote that accompanies the award is from one of our Greek friends, another historian, and Thucydides said the following: "They were born never to live in peace and quiet themselves, and to prevent the rest of the world from doing so." This was his description of the Athenians. So the Frank Gehry Award for the thesis in the graduate program at SCI-Arc in 2013 goes to Stefano Passeri. Where's the money? The money mysteriously disappeared to my pocket. Did you write the check? Where the hell is it?
Maybe you gave it to the wrong guy.
Yeah, maybe the last guy's got two. Well, we'll figure it out. The prizes and are not acknowledging same. The prize is for $5,000. Congratulations, Stefano. There you go. Oh, here it is. Here it is. After all, we were trying to abscond with it, you know.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all the winners. You're the voice of SCI-Arc going forward. Before we adjourn, let me thank the following people. Stephanie Atlin first, who, along with Paul Holliday, got all of this organized, and most important, gave me the list of the people to thank. So she comes first. It says here, only if it goes well. Did it go well? Should I read that? Graduation speakers, Jean-Louis Cohen, Eva Franch, Stuart Magruder, Stefano, what did you say? Where did he go? What did you say your last name was? We haven't read it enough. Stefano Passeri, Ming Feng, John Enright, Hernan Diaz Alonso, Elena Manfredini, who coordinated the graduate thesis, Devin Weiser, who coordinated the undergraduate thesis, Berta and Frank, sponsors of the Gary Prize, the pavilion which we inhabit at the moment, thanks to Marcelo and Georgiana, the firm Patterns. Thank all of you for your support, your love, and we look forward to seeing you along the road of the architecture discourse many times in the future. Good night.